Chapter 1951 Two Rings. The sense of danger drove her to panic. How could this happen? Yuan and Yui forcibly halted her turning action at once. Her gaze was focused as she unleashed the purple demon eyes. At the same time, she flipped her hands to shield her body. Precisely at this exact moment, she felt a tiny crystal-like object appear in her perception. It was extremely peculiar. It felt as if the object did not exist in time and space, yet a fragment of it seemed to belong to space-time. What was that? She unleashed a Titan Divine Punch subconsciously in an attempt to block it. However, the tiny crystal-like object passed through the Titan Divine Punch just by flickering once. The object had seemingly returned to the spot in an instant where the previous attack was delivered. By the time Yuan and Yui reacted to the situation, the crystal was already before her. Soon after, Shishi's silhouette was revealed in a flicker. One of his eyes was black while the other was white. His whole person seemed to be in an awfully strange form at the moment. It was his ninth soul skill, the hyperspace strike. It was Shishi's trump card. He had brought it up before Yuan and Yui in the past. It was a soul skill which he had not utilized even when he was fighting against the abyssal creatures. He told Yuan and Yui that his ninth soul skill was an all-out skill. It was a make or break soul skill. As a result, even Yuan and Yui had no idea how powerful this soul skill of Shishi was either. Judging by their capabilities, Yuan and Yui was certainly superior to Shishi. Yet, they were a couple after all. In reality, Yuan and Yui had kept her reservations during the battle earlier. She had not gone to great lengths in a true sense. On the other hand, Shishi obviously went all out. As the battle progressed and their abilities were almost at par, Yuan and Yui was rendered incapable of avoiding the hyperspace strike anymore. Yuan and Yui frowned. She never expected Shishi would actually try to kill her. However, she relied on her vast combat experience to evade the attack. Her forward battle armor was unleashed instantly to protect her. However, she only truly understood the most terrifying part of the hyperspace strike when it arrived. It felt as if the sharpness had already made contact with the inside of her battle armor as the void flickered. The strike actually possessed the ability similar to the Abyssal Sage King's super divine weapon, the Heaven Saint Crack Abyss, which ignored all defenses. In fact, it was highly possible that it was Shishi's first time in utilizing the all-out skill. It was precisely due its abruptness that it was irresistible. Yes, it was irresistible. Yuan and Yui was caught in a daze at the moment. She watched in bewilderment as Shishi was just a short distance away from her. Yet, his arm had punched into her battle armor in its illusory state. Is he going to kill me? However, it was also at this exact moment when she saw Shishi smile. His initially ice-cold face cracked into a faint smile. It felt as if time came to a complete stop at this very instant. Then, Yuan and Yui watched in astonishment when Shishi's hand, which had punctured her forward battle armor, came to a halt. The feeling of sharpness that felt threatening had also vanished. Meanwhile, his body was still frozen over there as a dagger was stabbed precisely into his chest. All the illusions were gone at this very moment. The blood drained from Shishi's face. His body went limp. He fell onto Yuan and Yui as his arm was locked in Yuan and Yui's forward battle armor. Oh. Yuan and Yui shrieked aloud. She felt the hot blood rushing in her body in an instant. She hastily held Shishi and descended from the sky. What are you doing? You. She had no clue what just transpired. Why did it suddenly develop into this situation? However, she clearly felt Shishi's life force draining wildly as if he was being devoured by another world. Shishi lay in her arms. His face looked queer. His eyes were still as bright as before, but those eyes were no longer in two different colors like earlier. He muttered to himself, Yuanan, do you think that I won the spar? What's there to win? Have you gone mad? What's wrong with you? Tell me quickly, what the heck is going on? What should I do now? One should realize that Shrek Academy had already lost the Holy Spirit Douluo who could resurrect the dead and regrow flesh from bones. Shishi said with a bitter smile, I've no idea why it turned out this way either. Frankly, I made a pact with Big Brother, Yue Yu, and Shu Lizzie. We had discussed in advance that we would propose to all of you on the same day. Yet, you told me before that you won't agree to marry me unless I can beat you in a spar. Your father has insisted on it as well. I've no other choice but to challenge you today. I'm well aware that it's almost impossible for me to defeat you by relying on my capabilities. I utilized the final all-out skill, just so I stand a chance of winning. Apparently, I succeeded, but I didn't expect that the all-out skill could not be stopped. When I wanted to retract it, I realized that I needed to look for another medium in space-time so as to misdirect the hyperspace strike. The perspicacity of this strike is to exterminate the opponent by devouring space-time. Even I couldn't escape it. Between you and I chose to endure it myself. Yuanan, I'm sorry. I can't be with you anymore. Oh. Yuan and Yui was stupefied. She never expected this to happen. How could this be? How could this be? Shishi committed a foolish act to fulfill her request. Everything happened too quickly for her to react. If one were to say that she was living in the joyous heavens, the final moment felt as though she was in hell. How could you do this? You're an idiot. I only meant it as a joke. If you proclaim your intention, how could I reject your proposal? Why did you have to do this? Tears began streaming down Yuan and Yui's face uncontrollably. In the meantime, Shishi's body had turned illusory in her hands. Shishi said with a bitter smile, I don't have the courage to try it. I'm really scared of being rejected by you. Yet, I love you very much. I'm sorry, Yuanan. Please don't cry. As he spoke, he raised his shaking hand to conjure a small box in his palm. He opened the lid of the box, revealing two rings inside. The larger ring was a golden crystal. It contained the rich earth element aura and was crystal clear with patterns of two little dragons on the surface. The smaller purple gold ring had an indistinct image of light which resembled a pair of wings on its surface. You have two martial souls. As a result, I prepared two rings for you. I may not live. So, will you please let me see you put them on before I leave this world? You're going to be fine. I'm going to take you to see Big Brother. Big Brother will certainly be able to figure out a way to save you. Yuan and Yui carried Shishi with her face drenched in tears. She was about to leave. It was precisely then that she felt the weight on her arms lessen. Shishi's body passed through her arms and dropped to the ground. At the same time, the two rings landed on the ground. Yuanan, I love you. Shishi's eyes were filled with affection. Yuan and Yui cried aloud in sorrow and picked up the two rings. Shishi, please don't die. I love you too. Please don't die. However, Shishi was seemingly unable to speak. He gazed at the rings in a daze. Yuan and Yui tried to grab onto his body repeatedly. However, his body had become an illusion completely. Regardless of how hard she tried, her arms would pass through his body. There was no time to look for Tang anymore. Yuan and Yui's heart was wrenched in pain. She slipped the two rings on both her left and right ring fingers individually. Tears were flowing down her face. I've put it on. Shishi, please don't die. Please don't die. I will say yes to anything as long as you live. Suddenly, Shishi blinked when he saw her put on the two rings. His initial dim gaze appeared to brighten up a little. Chapter 1952 Don't cry. Yuanan, don't cry. Yuanan, don't cry. I'll give it a try. Ha. His voice was heard once again. Moreover, it sounded much clearer than before seemingly. Then, his body began to consolidate gradually under Yuan and Yui's dumbstruck stare. Shishi began to appear more solid. Yuan and Yui covered her mouth and looked at him without blinking. She was afraid that his body would disintegrate once again if she were to make the slightest sound. At last, Shishi's body became solid once again. Thump. He stumbled onto the ground as if he had just appeared from another world. He rolled once on the ground before he sat up. His face was ghastly pale and he appeared weak. However, the dagger on his chest was gone. Furthermore, he was now in full, solid form. Ouch. That hurts. Finally, I managed to seize back my body. Yuanan, it was your cry that made me come alive. Thank you for saving me. As he spoke, Shishi threw himself forward to hug Yuan and Yui tightly as if to show his gratitude. Yuan and Yui sat in a daze. The feeling of having saved someone who had died made a big impact on her heart. Shishi gently caressed her back to calm her agitated emotions. I'm sorry for making you worry. It was my first time to utilize the skill. I'd no idea that it would turn out this way. Yuanan, I'm sorry. It's my bad for hurting you. He spoke with true emotions and sincerity, and he gave her a big hug. Let's go. Let's gather with the others. I wonder how things are with Lizzie and Yu. As he spoke, Shishi flew toward the sky with Yuan and Yui in his arms. Yuan and Yui recovered slightly from her surprise in the meantime. She stared at Shishi by her side. Shishi felt uneasy with her stare, so he turned to ask her out of concern. What's going on, Yuanan? Yuan and Yui bit her lower lip and looked at him with a burning gaze. You were only putting up a show earlier, right? Huh? Shishi hastily said, No, of course not. Why would I put up a show? Don't say anything. Yuan and Yui suddenly interrupted him. A chill immediately ran through his entire body. He assumed that the entire process earlier had been flawless. He had lost count of the number of times he went through the rehearsal. Furthermore, the act involved a certain amount of risk at the time. After all, the action of his body being sucked into space-time was real, only that he was capable of controlling himself. He knew Yuan and Yui's temperament too well. Were he not prudent, she would be truly furious having gone through an emotional rollercoaster ride of sorrow and joy. Yet, he never expected what Yuan and Yui was about to say next. I'm sorry, Shishi, said Yuan and Yui softly with her head lowered. Shishi was stunned for a moment. Yuan and you. I'm sorry for being difficult and making things stressful for you all this while. I've neglected your feelings. You only adopted this method because I've been too hard on you. I know that my father has given you much pressure too. In reality, he approves of you, only that he doesn't want me to get married so soon. My entire clan has given you so much pressure. I assure you it won't happen again. Love is supposed to be between two people. It should never be a one-sided affair. I promise to treat you better from now on. Shishi, I'm sorry. As she spoke, she wrapped her arms tightly around his arm. She leaned close to him just like a wife who had made a mistake. Shishi did not expect this to happen. He immediately felt hot blood gushing into his brain. He hugged Yuan and Yui tightly. It's okay. It's okay. It's my bad. Yuan, I have to do it since I've no other choice. I was really afraid that they'd all be successful in their proposals while I failed. I'd die from heartbreak if that were the case. I'll certainly treat you well for the rest of your life now that you're my wife. No other choice? So, you really were putting on a show earlier? Yuan and Yui raised her head once again. Shishi saw a streak of murderous intent in her eyes. Shishi looked at her in bewilderment. He was silent for a few moments before he replied in a raspy voice. Yuan, I didn't realize you were a good actress too. Good actress my SS. Yuan and Yui raised her hand and knocked his head. She said in rage, Shishi, just you wait and see how I'm going to punish you later. Shishi felt like weeping, but there were no tears. He did not expect to be tricked by Yuan and Yui. What? Quick, let's head to the gathering. Where are they? Do you want them to wait for us? Said Yuan and Yui in a furious tone. Shishi was stunned for a moment. In the next moment, however, he was overjoyed. He stared at the pair of rings on her finger and asked in an exploratory manner. So, are you saying yes? Yuan and Yui raised her head and looked up to the sky. I suppose I can live with it for the sake of a pair of rings. Haha, awesome. Shishi hugged Yuan and Yui abruptly and then spun around once. A moment later, both of them shot straight into the sky. Regardless of how strenuous it had been, the outcome was wonderful at the end. What could be more awesome than this? In the center of the sea god lake, the huge gigantic crown blotted out the sky and covered the sun. By the time Shishi and Yuan and Yui arrived on the spot above the crown, they were immediately immersed in the rich life source. Meanwhile, the area above the crown was crowded with people milling around. To everyone's surprise, a large screen was set up in the area. Yui's Hang Yu and Xu Xiaoan were holding hands, while Xu Lizzie held Yu Xinglin's hand. Apart from them, all the powerhouses from Shrek Academy and the Tang sect with title Douluo ranks and above were present. They were the boundless sea Douluo Chen Xinji, the light dark Douluo Long Yeyu, the amorous Douluo Zhang Xin, the heartless Douluo Cao Daja, Lan Muzi, Tang Yumeng, Aruang, and Sima Jingkai. Everyone was beaming with joy. Also present were the 7 old demons with their solid-like bodies which made them look real, almost like humans. Due to the effect of the ancient eternal tree's exceedingly rich life force, although they could not be resurrected as humans, their energy was much more potent than before. It was not an issue for them to be far from the 7 saint abyss for a short period of time. At a glance, Shishi saw his father-in-law Master Yuan and Tiandang standing among the crowd. However, his expression did not seem pleasant. Yuan and Tiandang only found out about the proposal ceremony after being invited by Yuan and Zenshin. He could not help grunting when he saw his daughter flying over hand in hand with Shishi. Besides, he saw the rings on her daughter's finger. Shishi felt rather awkward as well. He peeped at Yuan and Yui by his side. Yuan made no comment as if she was oblivious to her father's displeasure. Haha, it seems that you've actually succeeded too, said a chuckling Yui's Hang Yu. What do you mean by actually? Asked Shishi in an unpleasant tone. Long Yeyu let out a cough and said, all right, we've invited everyone here today to be the witnesses for these children. As soon as she spoke, everyone's gaze naturally shifted to the young elder Long. Long Yeyu's gaze swept past these 6 people in succession. It seems that all of you've already succeeded in your marriage proposals. As your senior and teacher, I'm very happy for all of you. It was you who stepped up to lead Shrek Academy to regain its prior glory when Shrek Academy encountered an unprecedented catastrophe. Everything you did for the academy will certainly be recorded in history. In Shrek Academy's entire history, only 2 generations from his excellencies, the Sea God and the Holy Ice Douluo can compare to you. It is an auspicious event for you today. I'd like to represent the academy to give my blessings to all of you. The 6 of them stood in a line and saluted Elder Long. Thank you, Elder Long. Long Yeyu said with a smile. We, the elderly, should say thank you instead. It's precisely to outstanding young people like you who have come forward that we're able to retire honorably. Haha. Let's wait for Tang Wulin's successful marriage proposal, so we can set the wedding date and organize the grandest wedding for all of you. I've already discussed this with the 2 excellencies, the amorous and the heartless Douluos. This will be the glory of Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. We'll then set up a grand banquet and invite everyone. Chapter 1953 I'm here, my dear. Yes. The wedding of the Shrek 7 monsters would certainly be a grand event for the entire continent, especially the wedding of the Dragon Emperor Douluo Tang Wulin and the Silver Dragon Princess Guuna. They were the heroes that saved the continent. Hold on. An inharmonious voice interjected. Shishi's heart shuddered. What I feared is coming true. The voice belonged to Yuan and Tiandang. Yuan and Tiandang walked forward in long strides. Long Yeyu looked toward him. Do you have something to say, Heavenly Wild Douluo? Yuan and Tiandang glared at Shishi and said, there is a saying of a daughter's match is decided by the parents. Have you asked me for my daughter's hand in marriage? Yuan and Zenshin frowned ever so slightly, but he did not stop his son either because he was well aware of Yuan and Tiandang's love for Yuan and Yui. If Shishi could not even pass his side, it would be a failure for sure. Shishi smiled bitterly in his heart. He took a step forward. He was about to speak when he felt a tremendous force shove him back to his original position. Yuan and Yui stepped forward and said to Yuan and Tiandang, Father, marriage is a matter between him and me. I've already said yes, so you should be giving your blessing to us. Could it be that you were going to make things difficult for your daughter before the eyes of so many people? As soon as those words were spoken, Yuan and Tiandang's domineering attitude was shattered. He continued to speak in a displeased tone. I can't just let my daughter be deceived and taken away by this scoundrel. He hasn't passed my test yet. Yuan and Yui said without the slightest hesitation. I've already tested him. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Moreover, we'll be staying in the academy after this. You are living in Shrek City too, so we will be always accompanying you. Father, give us your blessing. Yuan and Tiandang was defeated at last upon seeing Yuan and Yui's persistent gaze. He was really afraid that his unyielding daughter would really tag along with Shishi and leave. He were to continue doing this. By then, he would lose more than he gained. There was nothing else he could do except to open up his arms. Come and give your father a hug. Yuan and Yui finally cracked into a smile. She walked forward and threw herself into her father's arms. Father, I'll always be your daughter. You can hug me whenever you want. I'm going to be right by your side. I let the scoundrel boy off too easily. They separated from the hug. Yuan and Tiandang glared at Shishi ferociously. If you treat my daughter badly, just wait and see. Shishi said with a bitter smile. If I were to treat her badly, there's no need for you to come. She will be more than enough. Do you think that she will show mercy to me? As soon as those words were spoken, the people on the entire scene burst out laughing. The awkwardness from a moment ago had vanished, and Shishi could finally be at ease. He took back Yuan and Yui's hand in content. The white screen was put in place before everyone lit up, and a figure appeared. His entire body was shimmering with golden radiance. Was that not Tang Wulin? The screen displayed a crystal clear satellite image. Tang Wulin was dressed in a white ceremonial suit embroidered with golden dragon patterns. The dragon patterns were not overly elaborate, but they perfectly complemented his handsome face. He exuded a godlike quality. He flew in the sky at a steady speed. Neither rushed nor tarried, heading in the direction of the spirit pagoda. The display showed that the spirit pagoda was already in sight and he was about to arrive. In the spirit pagoda's headquarters, the lofty pagoda tower stood tall. Tang Wuolin was very familiar with the place, but he had always come there in hostile intent before. He had only come in peace when he had to verify his battle armor. This time, he had come to this lofty pagoda to do something that he never expected. He never imagined that his wife would be the spirit pagoda's pagoda master. Naturally, his arrival drew the spirit pagoda's attention. After all, he did not try to disguise himself at all and his aura was so majestic. Meanwhile, Guuna was standing in front of the window. Her position allowed her to see the silhouette of golden light traveling toward her, getting closer and closer. She was dressed in a silver gown, her attire complementing the beauty of her silver hair. She was like a fairy maiden descended from above. Pagoda master, His Excellency the Dragon Emperor Douluo is here. Look. The spirit pagoda's staff had reported the event to her earlier. I shall attend to this myself, said Guuna indifferently. At this exact moment, her gaze was fixed upon Tang Wuolin. She had been with him since she was a child. At the time, his family was impoverished. He began interning as a blacksmith when he was young in order to cultivate. She could still remember how he was reluctant to spend the money earned from forging, yet he was always buying candies for Naya. He was a great brother without a doubt. He was so kind. He made himself who he was today step by step, making countless sacrifices. How many hardships had he endured? How much pain had he experienced? He was separated from his family while his teachers died in battle. The crushing blows over and over again did not push him down. He developed over time, and he had such a firm heart. She had never seen him dressed in such a magnificent outfit. There was no doubt that his white ceremonial suit was tailor-made for him. It complemented his almost perfect figure such that he looked even more handsome and masculine. His hair was blue, and it blew in the wind to make him look especially vigorous. His eyes were crystal clear and filled with rich passion. The scorching hot aura made her feel as if she would melt completely. He was getting closer and closer so swiftly. She could clearly feel her heart beating faster and faster. He had seen her as well. Although she was standing behind the window, his purple demon eyes had already spotted her. The silver gown accentuated her slim waist. She had always looked perfect to him. He loved her large, purple eyes and her well-proportioned, slender, and tall figure. He was familiar with every bit and piece of her, yet his heart would still burn every time he saw her, as if it was filled with ineffable fervidness. Her presence filled his heart to the brim. His love for her had never wavered even in the slightest. He had finally arrived at what felt like the most important moment of his life. All the obstacles that kept them apart in the past had vanished into nothingness following the great battle. He felt that there was no one else that could stop him in this world. He was the son of the God King and possessed the most elegant status. He was the leader of Shrek Academy and the Tang sect with the most powerful supporters. The Lord of the Plain was his grandfather and the Life Core was his grandmother. He had also cultivated the real God rank and he was standing on the pinnacle of this world already. She gave him her perfect self, though he was not a perfectionist, and he hoped that he could be with her in a real sense. They would live and share everything without distinction between each other so they could enjoy their happiness in this world. I'm here, my dear. Are you ready? Tang Wuolin stopped in the air when he was about 1,000 meters away from the spirit pagoda's headquarters. He did not move farther forward anymore and cracked a smile at Guuna standing behind the window. Then, he raised his hands slowly from his sides. At once, the golden glow on his body grew brighter. Although they might have been witnessed by thousands, with many watching through the satellite, this moment belonged to the two of them alone. In Tang Wuolin's view, everything he did was for the person before him. There was a deep dragon's roar which made Guuna's silver dragon king bloodline hum softly in reply. They could clearly sense their hearts beating at the same frequency. Tang Wuolin could feel her love for him and her surging emotions. His hands drew a circle in the air, conjuring a gigantic golden heart-shaped halo. With Tang Wuolin's body at the center, the heart expanded and colored the entire sky splendid gold. Soon after, layers of overlapping heart-shaped halos spread and diffused into the surroundings. Chapter 1954 Marry Me. In Eternal Sky City, Xu Shaowen muttered to herself, "Where is the simple ceremony we were promised?" Even without looking at the screen, they could see the golden heart-shaped halos from the city. Even so, this belonged solely to the two of them and nobody else. Tang Wuolin smiled. He was not in a rush to speak to Guuna, nor did he come forward immediately. Yes, he was right. This was a matter that belonged to only the two of them. That being said, how could he not be extravagant for her? He wanted to show the entire continent that this was a groundbreaking proposal. He clasped his hands together before his chest, then turned over his wrist to make a hand gesture as if he was holding his heart. A gorgeous pink large flower bloomed in his palm, emitting a pink halo. Tang Wuolin made a lifting gesture with his hands. The pink flower floated out and levitated in the air, its halo spreading out in a manner that stirred one's heart. The gentle pink glow circulated in the air while the halo spread outward, and something unique was taking place. On the ground, dark green saplings began to reach out from the soil slowly with the spirit pagoda's headquarters as its center point. They were growing steadily and healthily at a speed visible to the naked eye. Large branches full of leaves with tiny buds began to take form. The buds bloomed into little white flowers as pure as snow. In the space of a dozen breaths, the plain around the spirit pagoda had turned into a sea of flowers, arranged in tiers. They appeared to have an extraordinary texture. The white coloring symbolizes purity and his genuine love for her. Guuna stood in front of the window and watched the area outside turn into a sea of flowers. Her lovely figure was trembling ever so slightly and her lashes were batting as a sign of her less than calm mood. Tang Wuolin spread his arms to his sides and cupped his hands together to make a lifting motion. At once, a shocking scene appeared. Countless flowers below him changed from white to pale pink and went from purity to charm in an instant. The pink color spread through the sea of white and formed a perfect gigantic heart for Guuna. Everyone that witnessed the scene through the satellite image was shocked immensely by Tang Wuolin's incredible ability to control plants. As nature's child, he became even more in harmony with the life force of the world following the evolution of his life core. He became an integral part of the world. On the other hand, this was only the beginning. The overlapping layers of fresh flowers transformed once again. This time, they acquired a myriad of amazing colors. Some were blue that symbolized water, red for fire, green for wind, yellow for earth, dark purple for darkness, and white for light. Lastly, there was also silver that symbolized space. The colorful flowers spread all over the entire plain. These 7 colors also symbolized the 7 elements controlled by Guuna. Guuna's eyes gradually revealed her infatuation. Her red lips were tightly pursed and there was only one voice echoing in her heart. Wuolin, everything has been worth knowing that I have you in my life. I'm willing to sacrifice anything for you. With the accompaniment of the 7 colored flowers, Tang Wuolin suddenly raised his head and let out a howl. At once, a gigantic golden dragon charged out from behind him. It spread its wings and spun its 30-meter long body around in the sky. Tang Wuolin was slowly carried forward on the massive dragon's head. Meanwhile, all the flowers on the ground began to change color once again as Tang Wuolin advanced. Most of the colors quickly faded away, leaving only the bright red that symbolizes sincerity. The stalks of the red roses elongated, rising straight upward and coiling around the spirit pagoda's base. It turned the spirit pagoda's headquarters into a world of flowers instantly. The fiery red blooms rose and supported the golden dragon's body as Tang Wuolin proceeded. He was getting closer and closer. At that point, Guuna's heart began to beat violently. He arrived before her, and there was no doubt that this moment was being witnessed by people around the continent. Countless were watching the marriage proposal that would be noted in the history of the entire continent. Tang Wuolin made an invitatory gesture toward Guuna when he arrived at the window. There was a flicker of silver radiance and the silver dragon princess dressed in a silver gown arrived before him using spatial change. They gazed into each other's eyes. Nothing but their own reflections were in their gaze. This day has finally arrived. I've already waited way too long for it. Tang Wuolin sounded like he was choking when he uttered those words. Guuna did not speak but looked at him in a daze. Her eyes looked mystified as they radiated complex emotions. Guuna, we've known each other since we were in Shrek Academy. It has already been a very long time. It felt as if the world was changing in the span of all that time. We've experienced all sorts of hardships and bitterness together and also enjoyed countless sweet times too. Today, I can finally stand before you in the eyes of the public. My heart has only ever loved you and you alone. You will be the only one I love in the future as well. No one else can take your place in my heart. Guuna, I love you. As he spoke, Tang Wuolin got down on one knee on Bolsong's head. He raised his right hand. The golden dragon scales on his palm flipped over to push a bizarre-looking ring to the center of his palm. The ring appeared extremely fancy. It was dark blue, but faint striations could be seen on the surface of the ring. No energy fluctuation radiated from the ring, yet shock flashed past Guuna's eyes when she first glanced at it. She knew the origins of this ring. More precisely, one should say that only she and Tang Wuolin were aware of how precious it was. Guuna bit her lower lip slightly. Her figure slowly floated forward and arrived before Tang Wuolin. Tang Wuolin looked at her in all apparent seriousness. Marry me, Guuna. I'll spend every day and night for the rest of my life protecting you, accompanying you, taking care of you, and loving you. I've already made up my mind to resign from the positions as the Sea God's Pavilion Master and the Tang Sect Master. Hence, the person standing before you is only Tang Wuling and purely Tang Wuling. I will be with you always no matter what you want to do in the future. Guuna slowly raised her hand as it shook ever so slightly. Tang Wuling's pulse was racing as well. He had waited for the arrival of this day for way too long, and it was also very important for him. At last, Guuna extended her left hand to Tang Wuling. Two lines of tears streamed down her face beyond her control. Tang Wuling's hand was shaking as well. His emotions left him struggling to control his hand that obviously possessed the power of God. At last, he took out the ring and slipped it onto Guuna's right ring finger cautiously. At the very moment the ring was put on, Tang Wuling could only feel as if his heart was ignited. From that moment on, she was his wife. The ring emitted a faint blue halo. At that moment, Guuna suddenly retracted her hand and swiftly pushed Tang Wuling's chest, shoving him away. Tang Wuling felt a tremendous force radiate through him and propel his body back in an instant. Not only that, large patches of roses were blasted by the surging energy and turned into a rain of flowers that filled the sky. Meanwhile, the people that were watching the scene from the Eternal Sky City were incomparably touched. They could not help letting out a gasp as none of them knew what was really going on. Chapter 1955. We are destined to be enemies. Guuna had obviously put on the ring given to her by Tang Wuling. Why did she do that? The person who was most shocked was Tang Wuling. He looked at Guuna with an astonished gaze. He looked puzzled. You. Guuna's eyes were brimming with tears. She gazed fixedly at Tang Wuling and muttered to herself, if ever there's a next life, I'll surely be your wife. Tang Wuling, I love you. Haven't you figured it out by now? We can't possibly be together. From the moment I woke, we were destined to be enemies. Tang Wuling looked at her in a daze. Those things aren't important. Naturally, I figured that you can't possibly be a human. I'm well aware of the abuses of mankind towards soul beasts. However, your spirit pagoda master. You're now in control of the spirit souls on the continent. Moreover, aren't you breeding soul beasts in the 10,000 beast platform which you built? You've achieved impressive results. The soul beasts will soon repopulate. We can't revert what mankind had done in the past. However, I'll assist you to safeguard the relationship between soul beasts and mankind in the future. Shock could be seen in Guuna's eyes. So, it turns out you already know about it. Tang Wuling said with a bitter smile. I'm not a fool. How can it be that I still haven't figured out after all that has transpired? Actually, I was suspicious when you first told me about the story of the dragon god. In fact, the connection between my father and I gave me an inkling of the truth. I learned about it when my father told me about the origins of the Golden Dragon King bloodline in my body. How can you possibly know about the mysteries of the dragon god if you were an ordinary person? I looked up the ancient books and records in Shrek Academy and the Tang Sect, but there was no mention of the dragon god at all. The spirit pagoda was founded later than us. How could it possibly be recorded? However, I had my doubts at the time. Nevertheless, we began to engage in the dragon god transformation. It was obviously the fusion of the two halves of the dragon god. At the time, I actually came to a conclusion. Furthermore, I suspected that your goal of joining the spirit pagoda was certainly not as it seemed. Yet, those were all unimportant. You've never truly hurt mankind as I've been watching you closely all this time. Circumstances changed with the passage of time. We fought against the formidable enemies together and defeated the abyssal plane. You are mankind's hero now. We're currently at a place of authority on the Douluo continent. If you're willing, I'll surely help you build a home for the soul beasts. Together, we'll safeguard and maintain an ecological balance. Guuna was stunned for a moment upon hearing Tang Wuling's statement. By then, the tears in her eyes had dried up. So, it turns out that you really were aware of it all this while. The corner of her lips curved into a bitter smile. Tang Wuling was growing impatient. He felt uneasy upon seeing Guuna's expression. Guuna waved her hand to dismiss Tang Wuling. Listen to me. If the enmity of exterminating a clan can really be resolved just as you said, then I won't be in so much pain anymore because of it. You're right. I'm precisely the Silver Dragon King transformed from the Dragon God after he was cut by the Shulo God's sword. I'm also the one who escaped the Divine Realm in the past. I was severely injured at the time, so I fled to the Douluo continent to evade the Divine Realm's pursuit. At the time, the Great Star Dou Forest was just an inconspicuous tiny forest. In fact, mankind had just emerged in the world at the same time. I was in a deep sleep for many years. Due to the effect of the plane, I had no choice but to dissipate my god power and fuse myself with the Great Star Dou Forest. In turn, the life forms in the Great Star Dou Forest multiplied and grew gradually. As a result, the biggest soul beast forest on the continent was created, and many soul beasts came to life. In a sense, all the soul beasts in the Great Star Dou Forest were my subjects. I discovered that my subjects were being slaughtered by mankind almost to the point of extinction when I awoke from my deep sleep. Thousands of soul beasts were killed. They were living creatures which were an integral part of the ecological balance too. At any rate, mankind hunted and killed them out of selfish reasons, just so they could become powerful soul masters. Some were killed for no reason. In fact, the Great Star Dou Forest was plundered by mankind until it almost ceased to exist. The soul beasts that survived were scarce in number. Many soul beasts were killed until not even a life seed remained. I couldn't even resurrect their clans using the 10,000 beast platform afterward. How many of our soul beasts clans were destroyed by mankind? Will the enmity be resolved just by a simple statement of yours to provide living space for them in the future? From mankind's point of view, our soul beasts have become your resources since earlier. Your soul devices are developed to an advanced stage, and you have even created spirit souls. Why would you still exterminate our soul beasts, although you possess the man-made spirit souls? Even the surviving soul beasts are reared in pens by the spirit pagoda. Mankind's malice has caused the near extinction of the soul beasts. It's your greed that has led to an imbalance in the world. Even the Divine Realm cares for mankind only. Has it ever empathized with our soul beasts? Your father was truly an almighty of his time. He lived up to his reputation of being the leader of the god kings. He drafted a great plan 10,000 years ago to surprisingly devour another plan and neutralize the threat on the Douluo continent. I admire him for that, but I was also very surprised. His plan was meant to help mankind. But did he ever consider the soul beasts? The world will be in balance when the soul beasts cease to exist. Henceforth, the Douluo continent will certainly decline too. I drafted a plan after I learned of this upon waking up. Our power was still lacking for me to defeat mankind since I was no longer a godhood at the time. Thus, we integrated into your world to learn more about mankind so as to find out your weakness in order to seek revenge and destroy you. As a result, Naya came. Naya's existence was to help us understand mankind better. At this point, Guuna paused. Her eyes were filled with enmity. Yet, there was also tremendous agony in her enmity. However, much to my surprise, I did not lose to mankind but to human emotions instead. The first thing that dawned upon me after becoming a human was to discover that I'm affected by human emotions. Naya fell in love with you. At the same time, I was inextricably involved as the result of a bet between us. Naya and I haven't fully fused yet. Her shadow still exists to a certain extent. As a god of the soul beasts, I'm supposed to lead the soul beasts to seek revenge on you. Heaven forbid, I fell in love with you. At this point, tears poured out uncontrollably from her beautiful eyes. However, Tang Wuling, you should realize that our relationship can't possibly last. From the moment I woke, I was with the opposing side completely. On the other hand, you're mankind's hero. We both represent separate people, and we're both creatures standing at the apex. Thus, we're not destined to be a married couple but enemies instead. Guuna raised her right hand. A dazzling, silver light ray shimmered. It was precisely her silver dragon spear. The silver dragon spear was swept horizontally across in front of her body. It transformed into a ray of dazzling silver radiance. The gigantic silver radiance was thousands of meters in length. All the wild flowers in front of her, even the blooming roses on the ground fell into the huge ravine which was carved out instantly by the spear's radiance. From this moment on, our ties are broken. We can only be foes. Chapter 1956. Broken ties. From this moment on, our ties are broken. We can only be foes. When she finished her declaration, loud, rumbling noises were heard all of a sudden. A gigantic rift cracked open in the sky. The rift appeared right above the spirit pagoda's headquarters. Soon after, enormous silhouettes came out from the rift in succession and hovered in the air. The two leading silhouettes were the largest. They immediately made their way over to Guuna and stood by her back. Tang Wuling was shocked by Guuna's resolute utterance and subsequent action. He could not help having a drastic change of expression, and his face was filled with disbelief upon seeing these two silhouettes. It was because the two silhouettes that stood behind Guuna were no other other than his great-uncles. They were the Azurox Python and the Titan Giant Ape that fought alongside Tang San in the past and did not mind sacrificing themselves to save his mother. They were the two brothers, Deming and Oming. Behind them, the numerous beasts included the Beast God Ditian, the Thousand Demon King, the Bear Lord, the Jade Swan, the Darkness Demon Dragon, and others who stood in a line. Many more powerful soul beasts were appearing in succession. The gigantic rift gradually expanded in the sky before transforming into a huge green cloud of light. It floated above with vigor and vitality. However, it was different from the Eternal Tree in the sense that it had a vicious murderous intent. The aura emitted from each soul beast's body was hostile. There were even more soul beasts surging out from the rift. Later, the green radiance transformed into an enormous vortex. The vortex was obviously linked to a small world. It was quite different from the small worlds which Tang Wuling was used to seeing. The small world was exceedingly stable. Besides, the energy in this small world was incomparably huge. Was that the 10,000 Beast platform? The words escaped Tang Wuling's lips. The place that contained Deming and Oming was precisely the 10,000 Beast platform. They were the masters of the place. At the same time, more soul beasts began emerging from the 10,000 Beast platform. It only took a short time before more than 100,000 soul beasts appeared in the air. Some were soul beasts that could fly, but more soul beasts materialized on the ground. They organized themselves into a dense formation on the plain. Tang Wuling's expression turned unpleasant in the meantime. Regardless of the large number of enemies before him, he could only see Guuna. Why? Why do you have to do this? All the disasters have been overcome with great effort. We can be together finally. Why must you do this? The tears in Guuna's eyes had vanished. There was only determination in her gaze. The beast god Ditian grunted once. Tang Wuling, this may be a disaster for mankind, but it's an opportunity for us soul beasts to regain our glory. We've waited a long time for this day. Under the leadership of Her Highness, we'll surely seize the Douluo continent once again to revitalize this world. Tang Wuling glanced at him coldly. Despite the beast god Ditian's cultivation base, which was close to 1,000,000 years, he felt chills all over his body under Tang Wuling's side glance. He shuddered uncontrollably from the cold and found himself incapable of continuing his speech. Tang Wuling shifted his gaze to Guuna. Since you're going to seek revenge on mankind, I'll be your biggest obstacle for sure. Why then did you save me when the beast god tried to kill me in the past? How could Tang Wuling not figure out that the silver silhouette that saved him was Guuna? Not only that, it was Guuna who saved him on multiple occasions whenever he was caught in life and death situations. Guuna did not speak as she looked at him quietly. They gazed intently into each other's eyes, making steady eye contact. Do you really have to do this? Tang Wuling looked at her with an intense gaze. Guuna took a deep breath. This is the only way. The corner of Tang Wuling's lips curled into a bitter smile. Do you really think that your soul beasts can defeat mankind and dominate the Douluo continent once again? Uncles, are you going to help her as well? Deming said with a stern expression. Wuling, it's not that we want to help her, but we've no choice. Just as the Silver Dragon King said, soul beasts will cease to exist in this world if we don't take action now. In any case, Deming and I were soul beasts initially. In the past, the Silver Dragon King met with us to discuss this matter, and to which we agreed to support. Besides, the blood of soul beasts flows in your body too. In fact, it even surpasses mankind's bloodline. Tang Wuling's grandmother Ayin was a soul beast. Thus, his father, Tang San, had half a soul beast's bloodline. On the other hand, his mother Xiaowu was a 100,000-year soft-bone rabbit. As a result, Tang Wuling's body was actually 3/4 of a soul beast's bloodline. Erming said, Wuling, come over to our side. Join hands with the Silver Dragon King and we'll certainly be able to set the rules for this world once again. It's the only way we'll let mankind off and not annihilate them. However, the predominant power of this world can't be given to mankind. For this reason, we've no scruples in waging war. Tang Wuling shook his head. No, that's impossible. Regardless of my bloodline, I must protect mankind. Do you really think that you're capable of resisting mankind and seizing control of this world just by relying on your powers now? Ditian said coldly. The Lord of the Plain is in a deep sleep, so's the Eternal Tree. Who else is going to support you then? Even though mankind has a good number of powerhouses, we've absolute confidence in ourselves naturally. Not to mention we've the courage to be here. Your Highness, please give the order. Guuna took a deep breath. Her gaze was fixed on Tang Wuling all along. Tang Wuling turned his head to the side and looked at her as well. He never expected to be totally on the opposing side one day. On the other hand, the opposition had caused him more than just pain. Meanwhile, the numerous powerhouses from Shrek and the Tang sect had made their way over and were standing behind Tang Wuling. Everyone looked solemn at the moment. The Shrek 6 monsters had just found out the reason Guuna insisted on joining the Spirit Pagoda instead of cultivating with them at Shrek Academy in the past. She did not do it for personal reasons. It was to seek revenge. Guua, why? Xu Shaowen could not refrain herself from shouting aloud. Why do you have to be this way? We agreed to organize the wedding together. We said we were going to live happily together. Why must you do this? Do you know how much Big Brother has sacrificed for you? Do you know how much he loves you? How could you hurt him like this? Xu Shaowen could not hold back her tears anymore at this point. The Shrek 7 monsters understood each other very well. Whether it was Xu Shaowen or the others, all of them saw Tang Wuling alone on many occasions. Tang Wuling had put in more effort in his cultivation than any of them, but they knew that everything Tang Wuling did was for Guuna to a large extent. He did it so he could protect her. They never expected Guuna to actually take an opposing stand against Tang Wuling and cut ties with him on such a joyous day. Guuna's expression was icy cold. She seemed oblivious to Xu Shaowen's accusation. Let's begin, said Guuna to the beast god Ditian. Ditian nodded. A radiance glimmered in his eyes. An ominous presentiment emerged in Tang Wuling's heart soon after. In the next moment, the gigantic green vortex in the sky turned black, dimming the entire sky. A strange fluctuation followed. Guuna cupped her hands together to make a lifting gesture. A ball of 9-colored radiance condensed into a light orb to emerge on her palms. Chapter 1957 Summon. Mission. Despite Tang Wuling's cultivation base, he obviously felt squeezed under temptation when the 9-colored glow emerged. The bloodline inside his body was fluctuating violently as if it were trying to leave his body to follow the glow. What was that? Guuna made a lifting motion. The 9-colored light orb soared straight into the core of the black vortex in the sky instantly. At once, the black vortex began to turn into 9 colors. A gush of mighty, terrifying spiritual aura burst forth from it, spreading outward instantly. Tang Wuling could not detect the extent of its coverage despite his divine consciousness. It was highly possible that it covered the entire Douluo continent. Guuna's eyes turned 9-colored at this very moment. She said indifferently, "Summon, Vision." In the next moment, a buzz was heard echoing through the sky and ground. A peculiar spiritual fluctuation burst forth. Tang Wuling felt his spirit caught in a momentary trance, but he recovered soon after. He turned his head hastily to the side to look at his comrades behind him. It seemed that his comrades were only affected slightly. He felt more ease knowing that. Yet, he felt burdened by a heavy load. He understood Guuna well enough to know that she would never do anything reckless. Surely, she had her objective when she unleashed the divine consciousness, which was countless times higher than Tang Wuling's. All of a sudden, a silhouette flew past Tang Wuling and dived toward Guuna. Tang Wuling was stunned for a moment upon seeing the silhouette. Not much later, he turned pale with fear. The silhouette belonged to the killing Douluo Tongyu precisely. In a light flicker, the limit Douluo Tongyu flew in and arrived at the back of Guuna. He stood behind her. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that he was staring blankly as if he had lost his mind. Tongyu was not the only person affected. Soon after, 2 more silhouettes shot out and made their way behind Tongyu. They were the husband and wife team, Lan Muzi and Tang Yingmeng. What was happening? The father and son team, the Titan Douluo Yuan and Zenshin and Yuan and Tiandang, followed suit. The 2 great limit Douluos flew out to stand behind Guuna. They, too, had blank stares in their eyes. Apparently, they had lost control of their divine consciousness. Tang Wuling said in a surprised yet furious manner, "Yue, what have you done to them?" Other silhouettes began to fly over from the distance. More silhouettes were flying out from the Spirit Pagoda as well. They all gathered behind Guuna and the numerous beast gods. Everyone seemed to have lost their divine consciousness. They appeared to be docile, obedient, and respectful. Quite a number of people flew out from Shrek City as well. Furthermore, Tang Wuling was acquainted with most of them. They were powerhouses from Shrek Academy, the Tang sect, the Titan clan, and also a few other subsidiary clans. Other than the Shrek 6 monsters, the Gale Saber Demon Sima Jinkai, the Body Douluo Ruing, the Sea God Douluo Chenzinji, and the Light Dark Douluo Long Yayu. The rest of the people had all gathered behind Guuna. We have been preparing for this day for a very, very long time. Do you think that the Spirit Pagoda is capable of developing a man-made 10,000-year spirit soul with its researchability? They couldn't have done it without me. Besides, my goal of joining the Spirit Pagoda is to be in control, but to use it to control even more soul masters. After all, almost all the soul masters in mankind mankind's world need to acquire their spirit souls through the spirit pagoda. Hence, anyone who has acquired a 10,000-year black spirit soul from the spirit pagoda will be under the control of my dragon god caused divine consciousness. Naturally, it's far from enough. After all, the powerhouses who were titled Douluo ranked many years ago don't need to fuse with the spirit souls anymore. I created the 10,000 beast platform so that those whose spirit souls were elevated in the 10,000 beast platform would be under my control. You're the exception since you already possess the divine consciousness, but I can't control that. Guuna explained it in an extremely calm manner as if she was just talking about a trifle matter. Tang Wuling turned pale. So, you're saying that? He turned around immediately to have a look. Just as expected, the Gale Saber demon Sima Jinkai, the body Douluo Ruang, and the Shrek 6 monsters who were fine earlier had now assumed blank stares. They flew away from Tang Wuling to join Guuna's team. They had accompanied Tang Wuling to take part in the Joust for a Spouse Festival in the past, and they had all entered the 10,000 beast platform too. Guuna said in an indifferent tone, there are more than half of the soul masters of 7 ringed rank and above who are now under my control. In addition, I've our soul beast legion. Do you still think that you've the capability to resist us now? Moreover, the commanders of mankind's army are all powerful soul masters including the divine brush Douluo and the bright mirror Douluo. They had all entered the 10,000 beast platform in the past. They've received the summon too, so they'll be joining us real soon and be under my control as well. There are only the 4 excellencies behind you who did not enter the 10,000 beast platform nor acquire any 10,000-year spirit souls before. Yes, there were only 4 remaining elders standing behind Tang Wuling at the moment. They were the amorous Douluo Zhangxin, the heartless Douluo Cao Daja, the light dark Douluo Long Yeyu, and the sea god Douluo Chenzinji. They had all achieved limit Douluo ranks in the early years, so there was no need for them to acquire any spirit souls. As for the 10,000 beast platform, they did not bother with it at all. In the meantime, Tang Wuling felt chills all over his body. If everything was happening according to what Guuna had just said, the crisis would be way more severe than the threat caused by the abyssal plane earlier. The number of mankind's soul masters had grown tremendously over the years. There are quite a number of powerhouses in the world now. Any limit Douluo ranked powerhouse would have the ability to destroy a city. A large number of these people standing behind Guuna were his companions and friends. She had such a powerful lineup while, on the other hand, he was all alone and helpless. Just as Guuna said, their preparation was sufficient enough for everything to work according to their plan. They could already exercise absolute control over everything when it was revealed to the people at present. Only a person such as the Lord of the Plane or with a life core ranked could possibly stop them. Yet, those people were in a deep sleep. Tang Wuling would not be getting any help from his father. Who would have thought that on a joyous occasion such as a marriage proposal a stunning turn of events would occur? Although there were still thousands of clear-minded individuals on the Douluo continent, of what use could they be? Would they be able to stop the enchanted soul masters? Moreover, mankind's armed forces were exhausted. The warships from the 3 great fleets were all annihilated. The assortment of weapons and equipment were all damaged and lost during the war against the abyssal plane. Tang Wuling had no choice but to acknowledge that Guuna chose the best time to execute her plan. It was precisely when mankind's world was at its weakest. Behind her, the number of powerhouses of limit Douluo rank and above amounted to more than 10. There were also Doming and Erming whose rank surpassed the ordinary limit Douluo. Surrender now, Wuling. You don't stand a chance against us. The order of this world must be restored, said Doming in a deep voice. Tang Wuling chuckled bitterly. Order must be restored. Is it going to be restored according to your soul beast's mentality? Are you going to start over everything in reverse? If I'm not mistaken, the first thing that you'll do upon seizing control of the entire Douluo continent plane is to destroy all the soul devices and scientific development, so that the entire plane will be in regress. This way, it will be easier for your soul beasts to dominate the world. However, the population of mankind is already so huge now. Can you dominate the world without resorting to any killing? In fact, I think you may even kill outstanding scientists and powerful humans to weaken the human population. Certainly, you'll not maintain the equality between the soul beasts and the weakened humans since you need to take the leading role. Hence, it's easy to tell what mankind's future will be like. Mankind will head toward extinction just like your soul beasts in the past. The beast god Ditian said in a stern voice, you've only yourself to blame for this. It's supposed to be like this. Back in those days, I watched as the Great Star Dou Forest was being gradually destroyed and ruined by mankind. How do you think we feel when so many of our subjects were hunted and captured for your experiments? Now, everything will be reversed. Mankind brought this onto themselves. You must swallow the bitter pill that has been created by yourselves. Tang Wuling's gaze turned icy cold. He did not bother to pay any attention to Ditian as he looked toward Guuna with a burning gaze. Is this what you wanted? To exterminate mankind? Guuna looked at him coldly. Pray tell me, what would you have done in my place? Chapter 1958. Head back first. Tang Wuling was silent. If he was only confronting the soul beast legion at the moment, mankind would stand a chance fighting against them. After all, the number of mankind's powerhouses was sufficient. They would still be able to fight against the other side even when the opposing side had Doming and Erming. However, the situation was now different as quite a number of mankind's powerhouses were currently under Guuna's control. Her influence was overwhelming. There was utterly nothing he could do to turn the tide now. Mankind was too weak and feeble. Guuna said indifferently, it will only take about 3 to 5 days to gather all the soul masters who are under my control. Tang Wuling, you have 5 days. Seriously, think this over and decide if you wish to surrender or be exterminated. Your Highness, you can't let him off, said Ditian anxiously. Tang Wuling had created way too many miracles on many occasions. Moreover, he was the leader of Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. He also had a close-knit relationship with the Lord of the Plane and the Life Core. If he was given a chance to awaken those people, things might still turn out different. Presumptuous, shouted Guuna coldly. At once, the color of the sky and the ground changed. The entire world seemingly turned nine-colored. A terrifying divine consciousness burst forth which created an immense pressure. Despite the beast god's abilities, he felt like he was blinded. He let out a muffled grunt and was forced to lie on the ground from the immense pressure. Although it only lasted for a moment, the aura emitted by Guuna earlier was truly powerful. Tang Wuling obviously felt the divine consciousness emitted by Guuna during the momentary outburst was no weaker and might even surpass the abyssal sage king. Her divine consciousness was superior to his. Guuna closed her eyes and spoke slowly in a deep voice. 5 days. You've only 5 days. Upon saying that, a silver radiance flashed once, and she vanished out of sight. The fresh flowers on the ground wilted. In the sky, numerous powerhouses turned around following Guuna's departure. A number returned to the spirit pagoda, while the soul beasts flew back to the 10,000 beast platform which was suspended in midair. Doming took a deep glance at Tang Wuling before he hid the sigh and left. Tang Wuling gazed after their departing silhouettes and looked at the withered flowers below. His face was ghastly pale while his fists were tightly clenched. He never expected this to happen. Wuling. A huge hand was placed on his shoulder. Tang Wuling turned his head to the side and found that it was the heartless Douluo Cao Daja. Let's head back first, said Cao Daja in a deep voice. Tang Wuling nodded. He turned around and flew in the direction of the Eternal Sky City with the 4 great limit Douluos. The silhouettes flew past them along the way. All the silhouettes were headed in the direction of the Spirit Pagoda. They were all in a confused state of mind and had blank stares. The Eternal Sky City was brimming with vitality, yet everyone had a lot on their minds at the moment. Tang Wuling seemed to be back to his normal self. His aura appeared to be icy cold. A soul master under the influence who had been captured earlier now stood before him. A golden glint glistened in Tang Wuling's eyes in the meantime. He was sensing the changes in the soul master. Other than the 4 great limit Douluos, there were the 7 old demons with him. Naturally, the 7 old demons were not infected. It took a half hour before the golden glint in Tang Wuling's eyes faded. How is it? Asked Long Yeyu eagerly. Tang Wuling shook his head quietly. I believe there is a seed that is planted in his sea of spirit. The seed is very unique. It's completely fused with his sea of spirit. It appears to be an illusory object, but it can't be removed unless his sea of spirit is dead. However, it'll also mean that the person is dead too. I suspect that Guuna used the powerful divine consciousness unleashed from the dragon god core to utilize the seed's influence over the person's sea of spirit. It should be a secret skill which belongs to the dragon clan. Unless someone whose divine consciousness can surpass the dragon god core, it's utterly impossible to negate the control otherwise. Upon hearing this, their expressions turned unpleasant. The dragon god was of god king rank. Even if the dragon god core was not as powerful as before, it was still a rank 1 godhood. In addition, there was Guuna's controllability, let alone Tang Wuling. Even if his grandfather Tang Hao, who was lord of the plane, were to wake up, his grandfather's divine consciousness may not necessarily rival the dragon god core. door. Tang Wuolin had a solemn expression. He folded his arms. A radiance could be seen flickering vaguely in his eyes. Judging by the current situation, they would not stand the slightest chance. Suddenly, the soul communicator on his wrist rang. He took a glance at the display. Tang Wuolin could not help frowning deeply. He responded to the communicator and heard an anxious voice at the other end of the communicator. Wuolin, how are things on your end? The situation is getting out of hand here. Many media channels played the satellite recording of your marriage proposal earlier. As a result, we can't hide this event from the public anymore. The person who called him was precisely the speaker Molan. It had been quite a while since Tang Wuolin heard her speak in such an eager tone. Molan could still remain calm even when they were confronted by the abyssal plane in the past. She had united the people and supported them at the front lines. Although Tang Wuolin was aware that the situation did not look good for sure, he did not expect the repercussions so soon. Sister, how's the situation now? Asked Tang Wuolin in a deep voice. Molan seemed to have regained some calm. The situation is really bad. The population is in a fragile state due to the abyssal planes event recently. Due to the sudden occurrence of this situation, their emotions have suffered a crushing blow. Many high-ranking officers in the army quitted their posts without reason. It's quite apparent that they are under an external influence. They're all headed to the Spirit Pagoda's headquarters. Hence, the army is left without a leader. I think even the Skycrosser Douluo is under influence as well. Not everyone is aware of this incident yet, although it's spreading across the continent rapidly since we can't contain the spread of the information anymore. Fear is spreading among the population. The safety and defense measures installed in many cities are affected as well. The situation is getting out of hand. Tang Wuolin took a deep breath. He knew the situation was bad, yet he did not expect it to be this terrible. Molan heaved a sigh. If the catastrophe of the abyssal plane was due to external causes, the disaster before us now is definitely our own fault. We destroyed the world, so the world is fighting back. It's only that we didn't expect it to happen so fast. Brother, you must be calm. You are mankind's only hope now. A dash of dejection flashed past Tang Wuolin's gaze. How could he remain calm? He stayed calm with great effort since he had undergone many trials and hardships. Sister Molan, try your best to control the army. After all, there are a number of military officers who are still clear-headed. Begin with the lower-ranking military officers and enact martial law over the riding cities as soon as possible. We can't allow chaos to reign. Guuna gave me 5 days. I hope that you can handle the situation for the next 5 days. As to how we can overcome the situation, I'll do all within my power. Molan knew that Tang Wuolin had yet to come up with a better idea at the moment. All right, Wuolin. I'll do my best to pacify the people's emotions. However, I'll make a public announcement that you have a way to save the day. If you need anything, let me know. I'll try to provide as best I can. I'll head over to meet you as soon as I can, once I'm done handling the affairs here. If there's no other alternative, I shall represent mankind to negotiate with them. After all, I don't think they plan to destroy the entire Douluo continent like the abyssal plane. Tang Wuolin nodded. The reason why Guuna gave him time was actually to seek out a compromise. Molan's opinion was spot on. The soul beasts were not trying to destroy the entire Douluo continent, but to take the leading role on the Douluo continent. Compared to the invasion of the abyssal plane, the current situation was more optimistic. Chapter 1959 Kill Her. The call ended. Naturally, the numerous limit Douluos present heard the conversation between Tang Wuolin and Molan. They could not help falling silent. The situation was different from when they fought against the abyss in the past. They were united as one to fight against the formidable enemy that was the abyssal plane. Yet it was highly possible that this time, their enemy was themselves. As long as the soul beasts were not foolish, they would be able to command the soul masters to spearhead the attack against mankind. What should humanity do if that were to happen? Should they kill their own people that were turned against them? Long Ye looked toward old demon Greed. Senior Greed, do you have any idea what to do? You are a spiritual entity. Is there anything you can do to help take back control of our soul masters? Old demon revealed a bitter expression that was rarely seen. You think too highly of us. Although we are spiritual entities, our existence still depends on life force. The silver dragon princesses of godhood rank and the dragon god's divine consciousness rank is even higher than ours by countless times. However, I believe that we might be able to figure out a way. Everyone's eyes shifted to him in unison, including Tang Wuolin's. Old demon Greed said in a deep voice, the dragon god core is undoubtedly within the silver dragon princess Guuna's control. One could say that she is controlling all the soul masters and is the only one capable of doing so. The only way now is to stop her from exercising her control. In other words, kill her and everything will be solved. At least, she will no longer be able to control the soul masters, and then we can gather the forces needed to fight against the soul beast legion. Tang Wuolin could not help shaking violently upon hearing the words kill her. Kill Guuna. The only way to solve all this was by killing her. Aside from whether they were capable of defeating her, how could Tang Wuolin accept the idea of using the word kill on the woman he loved so deeply all his life? Everyone fell silent. No one could help him to make a decision at this time. However, just as Molan had mentioned, as a real god, he was the entire Douluo continent's only hope. In Mingdu City, fear spread through the streets. The situation was just as Molan had predicted. There was a saying that evil news rides fast while good news comes later. The news of a large number of soul beasts appearing and seizing control of soul masters to take revenge on humankind had already spread through the continent within a short period of time. Soon enough, a cacophony of voices were condemning all soul masters. Had the soul masters not been hunting soul beasts, would this problem have arisen? Whatever the case, these statements could not be justified. Who could decide whose fault it was in these matters? Did it still matter anymore at that point? More importantly, what course would mankind take in regards to the soul beast's revenge? Molan truly lived up to her reputation as an outstanding leader. After ending the call to Tang Wuolin, she immediately bustled about. She headed to the Central Army Corps personally and assumed the leading role of the Central Army Corps first. More than half of the military officers in the Central Army Corps had vanished. There was no doubt that they had already headed over to Spirit Pagoda. Even so, there were still some military officers remaining. Due to severe losses of the 3 great fleets, the most powerful force left in mankind's legion was the Central Army Corps. Molan mobilized the Central Army Corps and deployed them to Shrek City by using the fastest mode of transportation, the Soul Train. She ordered them to reach Shrek City in 5 days. Fortunately, those departed military officers did not manage to unleash any destructive actions before they left. After 2 days' worth of hard work and effort, the situation at the military side had been stabilized at last. The order of the city was preserved with great effort. That being said, the massive shadow still lurked and enshrouded the entire continent. More and more soul masters were gathering around the Spirit Pagoda's headquarters, numbering in the hundreds, if not more than 1,000. In just 2 short days, more than 2,000 soul masters with significant cultivation bases had gathered there. The most terrifying part of the situation was that almost all the powerhouses from the War God Hall, including the Skycrosser Douluo, had already arrived at the Spirit Pagoda and became a part of the soul beast's forces. Your Highness, why don't you seize the opportunity to round up Tang Wuolin and the rest at one swoop the other day? Tien attempted to tone down his attitude as much as possible in order to prevent triggering the rage of Guuna once again. No one had seen Guuna after that day. She had returned to the Spirit Pagoda and shut herself in her room. There was no doubt that the beasts were very satisfied with the operation this time. It was an outcome that had taken many years of preparation. It could be said that the operation shocked the entire continent immensely. Within 2 short days, there was already a large number of soul masters under their control gathered around the Spirit Pagoda. These soul masters were obedient and submissive. They became a part of the soul beasts due to the incredible control effect of Guuna's dragon god core. It was strange that Guuna did not display any emotional fluctuation at Tien's query. It seemed that her entire person was already much calmer after 2 days. Her emotions had gone back to normal as well. It felt like the grand event that made the entire continent shiver in fear had not happened. Let me ask you this, Tien, what is the final result that you hope for? Asked Guuna indifferently. Tien was stunned for a moment. Then, he said without the slightest hesitation, I wish to return to the ancient times. Of course, I wish to return to the time when we were in control of the entire continent. Our soul beasts are the main leaders of the Douluo continent. Under your control, the Douluo continent will certainly return to a period of prosperity like the ancient times during our soul beasts' reign. Guuna heaved a sigh softly. There was a wisp of disappointment in her gaze. Is that really what you wish for? Tien was stunned by her question. In an instant, he suddenly felt calmer. He had lived for a few hundreds of thousand years in this world after all. Although he had not truly lived as long as 800,000 years, his cultivation base had reached that level and he was definitely the most intelligent creature in the soul beast's world. So are you saying? You're worried about the Lord of the Plane and the ancient eternal tree's future awakening? DTN immediately realized the point of her question. Nevertheless, Guuna shook her head. No, it's not that simple. When I first awakened from the deep sleep back in those years, I had the same ideology as you. I wanted to integrate myself into human society and learn about them so I could annihilate them in the end and bring glory back to our soul beasts. We had been constantly working hard to achieve that goal over the years too. Yet, I gained more and more understanding of mankind's plan as I learned more and more about them. Frankly, humans possess deep-rooted bad habits. They are greedy, selfish, and will spare no effort for their own selfish motives. In fact, they even tried to destroy our habitat. However, we must also acknowledge that humanity has its strengths too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to develop to today's scale. Even the divine realm is led by humans. No matter which planet the divine realm was created on, mankind was still the most powerful clan in the end. At this point, she paused for a moment. DTN had a look of deep pondering as well. If this was the past, DTN would certainly blame this on the relationship between Guuna and Tang Wulin subconsciously. However, they had waged a full-scale war against mankind. In fact, Guuna did not even mind cutting ties with Tang Wulin. As such, her statement was undoubtedly the voice of conscience worthy of pondering. Humanity has its strengths too, which can be seen particularly in some outstanding human beings. They are intelligent, persistent, honest, kind, indomitable, and more importantly, they possess the creative power that we don't. Creative power? DTN looked toward her in slight astonishment. Guuna nodded. That's right. The power of creativity. Think about this. How many years have we dominated the entire continent before mankind? How many soul devices have we developed? If you were to think from a more extreme point of view, I'm afraid it's not that easy for us to destroy a planet if we want to. We wouldn't even have a clue as to how to do it. Chapter 1960, The Evolution of Planets. It's true that mankind is constantly destroying this world, but similarly, humans are also using their creative powers to bolster their intelligence, which results in their need for more resources. They are constantly advancing and rely on their creative power to leave us behind. This renders us incapable of competing against them and withdrawing from the stage gradually. The most important reason for the extinction of us soul beasts is that we were far less powerful than mankind. As a result, we must face the meaning of human existence and not just purely try to annihilate them. DTN vaguely understood. He inquired closely. So what should we do then? Guuna did not answer his question directly but continued to speak. I've contemplated meticulously from the other point of view. When we were fighting against the abyssal plane in the past, I channeled the large amount of abyssal energy devoured by the silver dragon sphere to the 10,000 beast platform so that the miniature world could be completely stabilized. As the core of our foundation, I believe that you can see the evolution of 10,000 beast platform. The core of this 10,000 beast platform is the dragon god core. With the infusion of such a large amount of energy, it has turned into the best living space for us now. Then, do you know how much of the abyssal energy I have devoured? DTN shook his head in confusion. In his view, the 10,000 beast platform had been elevated 3 times more than before at the very least. Indeed, it was 10 times more stable than before, allowing it to contain more soul beasts. Guuna said, I'd say about 100th. DTN was startled. He could not help saying, what? Only 100th? But you devoured the spirit monarch that was ranked second in the abyssal plane and so many monarch and king rank powerhouses. How could it possibly only amount to 100th? Guuna sneered. Who do you think the Abyssal Sage King was? As the overlord of the Abyssal Plane, he was the core of everything in the Abyss. Moreover, it was a plane that could not be measured with ordinary units. Even so, it doesn't mean that each leader of the 108 levels of the Abyss possesses 10 to 20% of the Abyssal energy. Most of the energy comes from the Abyssal Plane itself. The Abyssal Sage King is only the leader and not the plane itself. Does the ancient life tree not need to digest life force in a deep sleep despite being the life core of Douluo continent? This is the consumption of one plane by another. Judging by its rank, the Abyssal Plane has even surpassed the Douluo continent plane. I can't describe it as a snake devouring an elephant. It is akin to a tiger devouring a lion. Thus, it needs a very long time to digest and absorb. On the other hand, it will certainly result in the Douluo continent plane's evolution soon afterward. I believe that you've surely felt it already. As the powerhouse that has stood on the pinnacle of this plane, you should have already known, right? Guuna asked DTN. DTN hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Yes, it has felt slightly different recently. My cultivation base that had solidified for so many years is actually wriggling restlessly in a manner that seems to want to break through to a higher rank. Although it is only a vague feeling, I can genuinely feel it. Guuna nodded and said, this is due to the plane's evolution. If one were to appraise it using the rank of mankind's soul masters, rank 99 is the bottleneck of limit rank, and achieving rank 100 allows one to achieve godhood. Then, rank 100 is no longer the ceiling following the evolution of the plane, and humans could achieve an even higher rank. Upon reaching such a state, the Douluo continent world will no longer just be mankind's world. It is going to be a demigod and even close to a divine realm itself. Even divine realms of lower rank are no longer considered basic planets anymore. DTN's entire body shook once. Is this the evolutionary path of the planet? Guuna said, that's right. It is surely going to happen. Moreover, I can't estimate the final destination of the plane's evolution yet. It might be rank 105, rank 110, or even higher. We will have to see the extent of the entire plane's evolution. You will be a beneficiary as an inhabitant of this planet. In other words, the god rank that you dreamt of in the past, you may be able to achieve the breakthrough on the Douluo continent not long after without the need of a divine realm. DTN drew in a cold breath. So you're saying that? Guuna heaved decisively. You were asking me about my concerns earlier. I'm worried that I am not the true lord of this plane. I have the dragon god core, but it is not complete. I may not necessarily be able to mobilize the dragon god core even after the lord of the plane's awakening and evolution on this plane. I'm worried that the real divine realm of the Douluo continent could return at any moment. I believe that you heard Tang San's words the other day. I was so close to them. As the god king, he made a statement in such a determined manner. That belief of his was an exceedingly terrifying power even in the cosmos. You witnessed Tang San's abilities as well. His fighting capacity aside, his 10,000-year plan to scheme against the abyssal plane, could you and I have done it? As the leader of the god kings, he has control over the entire divine realm. Let alone me. Perhaps even the reborn dragon god is incapable of rivaling him. If we were to destroy the entire human world, what is going to happen when the divine realm returns one day? DTN shivered in fear. He was only considering the Douluo continent earlier. As Guuna had said, they would still stand a chance against the humans with the dragon god core, even if the lord of the plane had awakened. Nevertheless, DTN could not help feeling a sense of weakness at the mention of the incomparably powerful god King Tang San. Guuna stood up and made her way to the window slowly. She looked to the gigantic ancient eternal tree in the distance. How do you think I managed to convince the Azure Ox Python and the Titan giant ape in the past? They were the companions of the god King Tang San after all. If I were to cause the utter destruction of mankind, do you think I could still convince them? DTN said in an exploratory manner. So you're saying? Guuna heaved a soft sigh. The conflict between mankind and our soul beasts can't be reconciled. It was that way before at least. The enmity between them and us is too deep. I believe that it is the same for you as well as the rest of the soul beasts. You are willing to go all out for this fury, yet I can't because I'm your leader. I bear the responsibility of passing down the lineage of my subjects for generations. We have the upper hand now, but we can't proceed with the final annihilation of mankind. DTN frowned ever so slightly. Guuna's words today had genuinely shocked him. Her words were particularly potent because she said it after the operation was in full swing and they had a clear advantage. Yes. Would it benefit the soul beasts' future if they were blinded by rage and hatred at this point? No less, as Guuna had mentioned, the conflict between humans and soul beasts could not be reconciled. Under such circumstances, could it be that they could just forgive and forget? The soul beasts would never agree to that either. One should know that the soul beasts resurrected in 10,000 beast platform were all filled with profound hatred for humanity. Your Highness, what should we do then? DTN asked in an exploratory manner. A dash of bitterness flashed past Guuna's exquisite face. Actually, I don't know either. We shall wait and see. We still have 3 more days. Everything shall be revealed in that time. Mankind is intelligent. They will figure out a way to ensure their own survival. Let's see what they're going to do before we decide on our next plan. DTN felt like he was at a loss, but he thought that Guuna's statement must be correct too. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for soul beasts that they could not let pass no matter the cost. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.